Hey y'all, welcome to Cmor of Life Unfiltered. We're your hosts, Sam and Alisha, high school sweethearts turned forever partners.
This podcast is about love, learning, and adventure.
We're bringing you the raw, the real,
and the unfiltered.
Welcome back
to Cmor of Life
Unfiltered. Today we're talking about compromise, confidence, and sacrifice within your relationship. It's going to get spicy. So, Sam, one of the suggestions we received during the podcast reveal was to talk about what it means to not lose yourself in your relationship. And I know that can be hard, especially for folks like us who've been together for a very long time. You become one and you start to lose yourself individually. So, to start us off, what's compromise? What does that mean to you?
So compromise to me is giving and taking of something that you both essentially have like a grand scheme of what it is you're looking for, but there are bits and pieces that you either have to give or take.
Yeah. So it's really comes down to deciding together what you can do with or without, right? Like in real estate, you helping a couple find a home, and they may say like, I really want a large backyard, and someone else might want a certain number of bedrooms, and then they come and find a happy median when you get to the property. So what are some big compromises you feel we've made in our marriage?
I think that everything we've compromised on has something to do with how does it affect us in the long run financially,
Yeah.
but also how does it meet our needs, both together and independently?
Yeah, I would agree. I think on the compromise side, we tend to be pretty realistic on what it is that, like, for example, I remember you wanted us to do some remodeling in the guest room, and it required us to change out the floors and things like that. And I know you want everything to look really nice, and it came out amazing. But I was like, this does not now mean we're remodeling every other room in this house, right?
Correct. She also mentioned that we're not redoing the floors for the entire house, which realistically we didn't need to. Our floors are great. We just had to do one room and we wanted to match it as close as possible. So my give was, okay, we don't have to do all the floors, but I would really love for all the baseboards to be redone so that they match all of the new renovations. And she was willing to go with that, and it made financial sense for us, and it really did great for the house.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And my pockets when we did not do everything, right? But you said something, you said your give was, so if I had to really define compromise, it's like give and take, right?
Sure.
So do you think that you ever had to give up more than you really wanted to in the name of just trying to keep the peace or trying to just satisfy me and get it out the way?
No, I think that compromising for us has been everything that needed to make sense for us.
Yeah.
So we've had to learn how to navigate those conversations, but to compromise on what was for the betterment of us or our home, I don't feel we have.
Yeah, and I wouldn't really say that when compromising, I'm losing something, right? Like, I think that's what a healthy compromise looks like. It shouldn't look like you have to lose something or give a piece of yourself up in order for us to reach a happy median or a resolution on what we're...
Right, I actually heard something once that was saying, like, it's a compromise because you have to give and take a little bit more on a particular topic, but it's also a collaboration.
Yeah.
You're collaborating on what that looks like. So
I like that. I like the collaboration point. That's good. What would you say has helped us, like a tool, or what have we done to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of compromising? I think it's just been open communication. Like, we're pretty, and you are very realistic too. I appreciate that. Even when I'm like pushing you to, I'm like, are you sure we probably could just get this more expensive thing? And you're like, nah, we don't need it.
So, you know, I like pretty things, but I'm also realistic about what those pretty things are. And some of the tools that we've gained over the years, like she said, were communication. And part of that is figuring out how to communicate what we want. So I want to say, like, recently, we were struggling to communicate on some matters, and we wrote each other.
Yeah.
And that was our way of communicating in that moment because that's what we needed. Versus other times where we just have a straight up conversation and we're talking to one another about, you know, here's what we want, here's what we need, how do we make it come together?
Yeah, so sometimes you just gotta sit down and write a 4-page letter and be like, I'm writing the 4-page letter. All right, this is not singing and y'all ain't paid me to sing, so.
But let's be very clear. Sometimes that is very much needed.
Yeah, no, we've been really good about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to have a verbal conversation sometimes. Sometimes you can sit down and read it and then process it and then come back and communicate what you're thinking and feeling.
Yeah, and I know that's not tonight's topic, but really when it comes to communicating, sometimes for me, it's easier if I just write it down.
Yeah.
And I can put like bullet points, I can do some numbering to like really say, okay, well, here's this topic. Let me express myself on this. And then here's number 2, and then keep going from there.
Because she's a very logical person, this works out for her, but I also enjoy that process because I sat down, took her 4-page letter, and then bullet pointed my responses. The good thing for me is it's very hard for me to vocalize what I'm trying to get across without getting emotional. So being able to write it down, I was able to think about everything I wanted to say, and then I chose to read my letter in response. And then we were able to have a conversation. Was I emotional still? Abso-fucking-lutely. However, it was a lot easier for me to say what I needed to say in between the tears.
That's right. Yeah, and everybody, says it. It's cliche. Communication's key. But if everyone's saying it, it might be a reason why everyone's saying it. Like, for real. So even when it comes to making decisions and compromising, communicating so that we can get to where we need to get to. Mm-hmm. As far as confidence goes, do you feel that your confidence has evolved within our relationship?
Absolutely. I am very much constantly battling with my level of confidence in different situations and different scenarios within our marriage. And not in the sense that she makes me feel less confident, but how I deal with confidence within myself. Mm-hmm. I'm the eldest daughter. I am someone who has always tried to please and give what someone feels they need, and I'm a caretaker. So all of those things have played into my level of confidence in certain scenarios. And we've had this conversation before where I feel the need to give into what someone is saying rather than just stating how I truly and actually feel, which leads to me sometimes disassociating from conversations or situations because it's a lot easier for me to process how I'm feeling without having to stir the pot with somebody else.
Yeah, no, I think that's all accurate. Do you think that there's a level of evolvement that while we've been together, you've been able to stand on it and get a little bit closer to where you want to be? Or it's just a work in progress?
I will always be a work in progress.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
No, but the reality is I have been working on my level of confidence, and part of that has been this process of choosing me. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean necessarily in our relationship as it's about me now, because it's not at all what I mean. It's more like choosing me in how I move forward with my career and how that affects us. It's more about choosing me and setting boundaries with others who have been around us for a long time because we are a family unit, and some people seem to forget that. So it's choosing me, but also allowing myself the grace to figure out what I'm trying to say and process what I'm dealing with so that I can communicate better with you, which is why I go to therapy, because I choose to, so that helps with my confidence on how I want to express what I feel. However, there are times where I don't feel I give myself that push that I know I should, even though in the back of my mind there's someone screaming, voice what you're feeling.
That's probably me screaming in the back of her mind.
It is her too, because there are instances where she's stating, I kind of know how you feel about this, why aren't you expressing that? And I beat myself up about it because I know that I want to express what I'm thinking and feeling, but it's so hard for me not to make others uncomfortable when I'm uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. And I think you're wired to be a nice person, be very considerate of others, and sometimes that can put yourself at a disadvantage, right?
But what about you and your level of confidence?
My confidence level is pretty high, I would say. I guess as far as evolving within the relationship, I've always felt that you have allowed me to have my high confidence. It's not like you're tearing me down or anything, so probably just got higher, honestly.
You know, you just actually reminded me of something. So, at some point or another, I had seen a video online of this woman talking about how her level of confidence stems from the fact that she had a naked mom. And not in the weird sense of like having a weird parent or anything of that nature, but having a mom who was confident within herself to freely express herself, even when in the nude, right? And I feel that that speaks a little bit to our own experiences with our individual moms.
Yeah.
Part of it being that your mom is very expressive in who she is.
She's a naked mom.
And my mom is a little bit more reserved. So my level of confidence has always somewhat mirrored that, and it's been a work in progress for me. But you have always shown this like exuberant amount of confidence that I find wildly attractive to start.
That's why it's growing. I told you, it only goes up from here.
But also, it seems like you just are always confident in your choices, in how you present yourself, in the moves you're making.
Yeah. I mean, it's not always that. It looks that way for sure. There's a lot of, in the background, like, there's self-doubt, of course. There's imposter syndrome. I've dealt with those moments as well, but I've always been someone who knows that I can get whatever it is I want, and that I will ultimately succeed. And so I just have to kind of swallow that, swallow those nerves, swallow those feelings, and just put one foot in front of the other and say, you know what, you got to get this done, so you better get it done and show that you can. So that's never been a big issue for me. But as far as nerves and having those moments of insecurities, we all face them, right? Before a big presentation, before I'm going to go and do something in court, I'm always a little bit nervous, a little bit unsure. But at the end of the day, I have to trust my preparation, and I'm like, you better get up there and confidently say whatever the hell you're going to say and then deal with it later. Like, I'm going to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. Fake it till you make it. And it's just, but I've always been someone who just felt like I was going to get it done. And I think a lot of that comes from my mom and how I was raised. But my mom would always say, when she would pray, she would say, God, don't allow me to be embarrassed in the face of my enemies. And that was always something that I also instilled, like, the haters are gonna see me succeed. So I always make sure, like, whenever I'm about to do something, that's kind of what I'm thinking about in the back of my mind.
I actually love that a lot. I love that you mimic that amount of confidence, but also have made it your own version of how you express yourself.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome.
So if we take the confidence and the compromise and we put them together, how do you feel those things have developed within the relationship and your own self-identity? So do you feel those things are causing you to like lose your own self-identity within the relationship, or it's something that you're able to balance?
I feel like it's been a work in progress for me to balance that compromise and confidence, because I've needed some work on being confident in how to use my voice to express how I'm feeling. So that has helped me in the face of compromise in our relationship and in general. But I do want to ask you something. How do you feel like we've supported each other in our level of confidence?
I think whenever I'm having those moments where I'm not really sure, I think most of that came like when I was in law school and I was feeling like I was in a space that I knew nothing about, and I was struggling to really feel like I was supposed to be there. I felt a lot of encouragement with you telling me like, this was your plan all along. Why are we deviating now? Like, you can compete with these people, right? So I've always felt supported by you. I've always felt like any random thing I tell you I'm gonna do, because God knows I'm always doing some random thing. You know, I want to be on this next business venture. I want to go and take this exam and like do these things. You're always like, yep, and you're gonna crush it. And the problem with you is you don't know how to half-ass anything. So here we go. We're gonna be doing this whole new thing. And I've always felt like you were always a big supporter of mine, no matter what nonsense I'm getting myself involved in.
Okay. I feel the same way. I feel like you've always been my cheerleader on the sidelines. There are times where you give me that extra push because I start to self-doubt, and my self-doubt can be crippling. And so I feel like I've had you in positions where you kind of pushed me to that finish line, or you pushed me to that goal, or you remind me that I set the goal and that I was able to accomplish other goals and that this is something else that I can do. So I do feel like you've been that constant support to boost that.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time, right? 14 years. We've had challenges where we felt we were growing apart. But there's growing apart, there's growing individually, but then there's also obviously growing together. And we had to deal with a lot of what does that look like, finding ourselves within the relationship and not just being just one and not realizing, okay, but we're together, but we're also our own people. Talk about like how you felt we had to get back to growing individually, but also making sure we're growing together.
So Alisha has always had a plan in life, right? There has always been a plan. There was a plan when we met in high school about what her life would look like after high school. There was a plan while we were...
exactly how I said.
Literally to the T. There was a plan while we were in college. So all of these plans were things she created, obviously, independent of us, because she started these plans way before us was ever thought of.
5 years old.
So with that being said, part of it was me joining those plans. And I think that within the process of me joining those plans, I had to find my own way.
Yeah.
And so some people might view that as a compromise, but the reality was that I was joining her life journey, and I needed to find my life journey within that because I wanted us to be together. So it wasn't I'm giving up all of me. It's how do I find me within us? And that is a process within itself, right? You're learning to grow as a young adult, and this one person is like gung-ho on everything that they want to do in life, and you're figuring it out. So I think that when we were in college, I chose what I was going to do, and I kind of stuck with that. That was my goal, and it was education, and she was doing her track for law. But within that, it was learning how to navigate, how do we grow up and be our own person, but also we're a couple. So, you know, balancing that.
So would you say that part of those transitions required sacrifices? Like, would you say that you had to sacrifice within the relationship because Alisha has a timeline, because Alisha wants to do this next, things like that, more or less? Or
I don't feel that they were sacrifices. When talking to other people, hearing stories like, oh, I've had to give up this for that within my relationship, that's not what any of those transitions felt like to me. For example, moving to Gainesville was never a sacrifice. It was a change. I needed to start a new journey. And part of that was going to college. And to go to college, I needed to move to a different city. That was not a sacrifice to me. And some people will say, oh, well, that was her plan. That's where she was going to school. But I had no plan. So to me, it was a great plan.
Yeah.
And honestly, there was a junior college there that was a great junior college that could put me in the position to go to any university. But I also saw and fell in love with the University of Florida. That's just the reality of how it was. Go Gators. So that wasn't a sacrifice for me. Us leaving Gainesville and going to Philly for your job within the law was also not a sacrifice for me. We had always planned that we'd be moving elsewhere. Originally, we were supposed to come straight to South Florida.
Yeah.
And it pivoted when she got this opportunity that, of course, she couldn't pass up. To me, that was not a sacrifice. That was us making a choice that would benefit the both of us in the long run. Us going to Philly also was an exciting adventure for me because I grew up north. So being able to be in a place that had all 4 seasons was a beautiful idea to me. It was also pretty cool to live in a big city for a change versus the slow and steady of Florida. Not a sacrifice. Did I struggle in Philly, which I'm not sure if we've covered fully yet, but yes, that did happen. That had nothing to do with our transition. Then transitioning down to South Florida, also not a sacrifice because we ultimately were originally supposed to end up here. That was always the plan, and because it was the plan, it was everything that we needed to do together. None of those were sacrifices. Do I feel like we've stuck to places that we knew aligned to what she would be doing? Absolutely. But was I also doing things within those places? Absolutely. So to say I've sacrificed anything, I don't feel I have in that regard. Or in any regard. I feel like everything we've done, we've compromised. Now, have we lived in some random place, like when I keep saying, I'd love to live in Italy, right? Realistically, is that a feasible option for us right now? Probably not. That one time where I was like, let's live on the road for a year. Was that really an option? Not really.
But we did do 2 months.
We did. So, like, that was a compromise. I feel like we knew that that would be something that we'd want in some form or capacity, and we made it happen in whichever way worked best for us. So,
because usually with sacrifices comes resentment, right?
Right.
And, you look back on your life 10, 20 years, and you're like, man, I made all these sacrifices for this other person.
Mm-hmm.
I lost myself within that time frame. And now you're looking back and you resent it, or you are unhappy with those choices and you have regret. And I never wanted that, right? So
right.
I was always like, this is what is next for me.
Mm-hmm.
Would love for you to come too, but respect if that doesn't work for you.
I do want to say this. I never resented my choices to follow you in your next step within your journey. Never. Did I resent myself for not voicing how I was feeling in certain situations? Yes. But then I had to realize I wasn't really resentful of my situation. I just didn't like that I didn't voice how I was feeling sooner to make a choice. In Philly, I wanted to take a gap year from teaching because I had lived in survival mode all of my life up until then, right? Mm-hmm. I needed to figure out what I was going to do, how I was going to be successful, what I can do to keep moving up. And when we were moving to Philly, we knew it would be a year, and I wanted to take that year to just do something fun, do something different. You hear about these college kids who take a year and live abroad, or take a year and backpack, or anything. And I wanted to give myself that grace, but I didn't know how to say that, and I didn't know how to communicate in a way that she would understand that either. Instead, it was a big mumbo-jumbo mess of my emotions, and so I resented myself for not communicating what I actually felt. And after leaving Philly, I felt that for quite some time until I sat with myself and was like, why the fuck are you so angry? Because you're not angry at her or living in Philly or the experiences you had there. It was, what is really bothering you? And the resentment that I had was within myself, like really realizing that I needed to speak for me. And I think that goes back to me having that confidence of voicing who I am and what I want. And so for you, have you had any resentments or any feelings about any situations that we've experienced together that you felt you didn't speak about then because you didn't know how to?
Not really that I didn't know in the moment. After the Philly experience, I had a conversation with someone, and I said, I've always just kind of said what I was going to be doing next. Mm-hmm. And me being the person that I am and so goal focused, I've always just said that this is what I'm going to do. And I think there's always been a level of an expectation that you would come along. And even if I were to say you don't have to, or choose your own path, feel free not to do this, I know that there was always a level of an expectation for you to come. And I don't think that was fair. And I think that it's harder for me to say I would have done something different, right? And I don't know how fair that has been to you. And I know it's something we've talked about. Obviously, we're talking about it now. But I just don't know how different I could have done it. And I always felt like, well, was that even fair, right? Was it fair to have the expectation that she would come? Was it fair to have the expectation that she would just figure it out, right? And I think that was a very hard year for both of us. And I saw how much of a toll it took on you just trying to find yourself within that place that we were in. And I just don't know how we could have done it differently. I really don't.
I agree. I think certain situations are meant to present themselves in the way that they do so that you can face them and learn from them. And I feel like Philly was a huge learning curve for us because I always knew I had a keeper, right? We were already past year 7 at this point. We were already engaged. We were already getting married. So we knew that this was it. But I realized she was able to hold down the fort while I came to grips with what I needed out of life. And it was exhausting and it was tiring and it was overextending for her, and she held it down. And it takes me back to that conversation we were having where it's like, you can't expect 50-50 or 100-100 all the time. That was a time where I just was giving all that I had at that moment, and she really picked up every ounce that she could to make us continue living our lives regularly, just held it down, made time for me, worked, figured it out for us. Like, it was, it's one of the things that I absolutely always think about.
It's okay.
Shit.
It's all right. made it onto the other side of it. That was like, what, 7 years ago? Time flies. Time flies. And, you know, I never had any resentment for it because I know you don't see it as a sacrifice, but I already knew you had been sacrificing for us. And it was my time to pick up the slack, you know? When I was in law school, I tell people till this day, Sam put me through law school. Sam and my mom, they put me through law school. You know, I wasn't supposed to work during the school year. I didn't. And it was important for me to focus on what my goal was at that time. And it was to pass law school, pass the bar, become an attorney. And people may see Sam live this great lavish lifestyle and think, okay, wow, you know, she's got her sugar mama over there, but she was my sugar mama first, you know? And I don't think you've given yourself that grace either, right? To just recognize that there have been those times where you were holding it down too. So for me to do it in Philly, it wasn't like I owed you one, but at the same time, I felt like, okay, it's your turn. And that's what goes exactly to your point, that relationships are not always 50-50. Sometimes you can only give 10, 20%, and you need your partner to come with the other 90, 80%. And I think what has worked here is that we have always acknowledged when the other person needs more. You need to give more. You need to acknowledge that, you know, your partner needs you in this moment. And we just have been doing that for so long, man, since, you know, 17, 18 years old. And so now it's almost second nature. We're really aware of it at that time. As far as sacrifice for me, I don't really feel like I've had to do a lot of sacrificing in our relationship. I think that the most sacrifice I do is not get enough sleep, right? I will sacrifice my rest so that I can be everywhere I need to be. And I think that at some point it'll probably catch up with me. That's just the reality of life. But as much as I work, as much as I overcommit myself to so many things, I'm sitting on a panel, I'm supposed to be at the courthouse, I got a closing for a real estate deal. If that's what other people are going to see, that's fine. But I always want you to be able to say, she worked a lot, but she never missed anything. She worked a lot, but she always made time for me. And I always try to think about the things that are important to you, trying to make sure I give you my all and that I can show up in this marriage. And so, if anything, I sacrifice rest and sleep, try to duplicate myself at times. Mm-hmm. But I never wanted to be that partner that was missing. You know, whether it's at your job, your students always knew who I was, your colleagues knew who I was, because I would always be that partner that's going to be your plus one at whatever event it is and show up for you. And that's always been important to me.
I second that. I absolutely loved when she would be involved in things for especially work, because I thought it was important for my students who came from similar backgrounds as her or just needed other role models to look up to other than the teachers they see every day. I always felt it was important that she would be around, and she always was. She made it happen, and I really do appreciate that. I feel like I tried to do the same and be involved in the things that you do. Obviously, I can't go to the office and, you know,
you don't want to go
cheer you on in there, but I do try to participate in the law events that you do go to, or just being your forever plus one, those kinds of things.
Yeah. I think compromising, sacrificing is a necessary component of a relationship. Mm-hmm. I just think that it's important not to overdo it to a point where you become, you know, a walking mat or someone who is losing themselves. And I think that's something that we talked about in therapy.
Yes.
As a couple, that trying to find that balance has been a process. It's always going to be a learning process for us. that we just have to work on.
Yeah, for me, when we did talk about it in therapy, part of me feeling like I was losing myself was because I felt I didn't have a voice. So in the global sense of our relationship, because I felt I didn't have a voice in so many areas of my life, I started to feel like I didn't have a voice in our relationship. It came down to realizing that Alisha is a star that shines bright, but there are tons of stars in the sky, and that doesn't mean that me as a star has to dim my light. I just have to recognize that we are both bright stars in our own right. And it's been a learning process for me because I have such a reserved and think before you speak mentality when it comes to certain scenarios. If you're a really close friend, you know I'm a goofball and you know I say anything half the time. It's like verbal vomit and cuss words thrown in every now and then. But generally, I'm very reserved, so it's been a learning process.
Yeah, it's also for me, I'm always like, babe, just say it. Like,
Right.
What is it, you know? And I know that it's also something I have to work on. I have a big personality. I am more than extroverted, right? Like I'm just extra, right? And so there are times where I'm like, okay, maybe if I just take it down a notch, you can feel more comfortable expressing yourself. And I don't mean like dimming my own light, but just giving you an opportunity and giving you the floor.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something we've worked on over the years as well, because it was something we discussed in counseling, because we did do couples counseling at one point before getting married, because we felt after years of being together it was important to have a middle person to kind of have conversations that we need
To tell us if we should or shouldn't do it.
Right.
Tie the knot or not.
I mean, here we are, right? So
Can you imagine if that's what's... Hey, so we're here, we're getting married. We'd like you to talk to us and see if this is something we really should do. I think that should be a TV show. People should do that.
Yeah.
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 Let's make that happen, Sam.
Yeah.
What are we gonna call it?
I don't know.
Tie or untie? Tie the knot or untie this relationship? Boom.
Okay.
They done canceled the queer ultimatum.
They
We gotta
did.
come up with something else.
Even though they had the perfect host right here, but whatever.
You know? So we gotta make up a new show and then we'll host it. So one piece of advice for couples struggling to balance self versus us.
One piece of advice. Understand that you yourself and you in the couple are two different entities within one. You can be your own individual person, have your own hobbies, your own likes, your own ways and forms of enjoyment, but also you can be that person within your relationship while embracing the parts of your partner that you don't typically follow. So your hobbies can be things that I enjoy when I'm with you, but they don't have to be things that I do when I'm without you.
Yeah.
You know, in that sense.
Yeah, I would say work on figuring it out what you want individually, because you'll always know what you guys want as a couple, because you're going to be expressing that to each other, right? Like that part I think is a lot easier. It's trying to figure out what does Alisha want for Alisha? What does Sam want for Sam, right? Like what we want for each other and together to grow, we'll communicate about. But trying to figure out what you really want as an individual is tough. I think that we all think we know, and then you start to have it, and you're like, do I still want this? And that's the part that it can destroy yourself and then have a negative impact on your relationship.
So for people who are entering a relationship or people who are unsure about their current relationship, don't give into or give up on things that you love for the sake of your partner.
Yeah.
because then you're only letting go of pieces of yourself. Like, I love to dance. I would never give that up because I want my partner to be happy, so I'm going to sit down every time there's music on. That would destroy a little part of me. And instead, Alisha has always taken me out on the dance floor after I got her used to dancing, because she didn't dance.
I did not.
And that was something that had kind of blossomed between us. But as an individual, I always dance, right? She doesn't always have to dance, but when we're together, it's something we do and flourish with together, which goes back to my point. But don't give up on things that you love for the sake of your partner, because that will only lead to resentment.
Yeah, for sure. And the dancing for sure was like not something that like I remember we were at a party. We were like at something with family, and we were dancing, and my dad came up to me and was like, "You're dancing?" I'm like, "Yeah." And that's how I knew I was in love, right? Like, because I was dancing with you, and I'm always dancing with you, and like everybody knows that now. And sure, I'm gonna always dance with you forever. But before, you would never catch me on the dance floor. Not happening. Too thug for that. I'd be sitting down. You know what I mean? So that was always something that I was like, yeah, I really like this girl. Must be, So encouragement for someone looking to rebuild their identity within their relationship. Any last moments, any words of encouragement you would give them?
I say ooh because I am now trying to navigate my identity outside of being a teacher.
Yeah. We're always trying to navigate our identity outside. One day I'm going to navigate my identity outside of being a workaholic. One day.
Sure.
I say it out loud, so it will happen.
I think just find things that you enjoy. Mm-hmm. And find things that you enjoy that bring you comfort and embrace them, so that you're not settling for things that you don't actually love or don't really want to do.
Yeah, I think it's tough. All of us in the world are dealing with our own identity battle. Give yourself grace. Give yourself time. I'm not necessarily struggling with my identity, but I am dealing with trying to figure out what else is next. Like, what is going to make Alisha satisfied overall? And
she will never be satisfied.
And I think at the end of the day, I had a realization. I want everything, right? I want it all. And I just got to give myself time. So give yourself time. Give yourself grace. Be patient. It'll all work out.
Yeah, and if you're in a relationship with someone and you guys are figuring out your identity together, fall in love with things for you, and then share those things and embrace them together, and see what each of you likes or doesn't, and then build from there.
So with that, we say, continue to see more of life.
Unfiltered.
Until next time.
Thanks for sharing this moment with us on Cmor of Life Unfiltered. If you felt a spark, learned something new, or just laughed along, hit follow, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs it.
You can find more love, learning, and adventure at cmoroflife.com. That's CMOR of life.com. And across our socials at cmoroflife_.
Until next time,
Keep living unfiltered.